Hello, hello. Welcome in. We're here to talk about how to master your starting macros, the key to every successful fat loss phase that I've ever been a part of. My own personal experience included has started with a really successful starting point. And I bet you're here because most likely you have failed using online calculators in the past, maybe even working with a coach in the past has not worked when it comes to tracking macros for successful fat loss. Maybe you have also used the default setting when signing up for a MyFitnessPal account, which leads to trying to adhere to the lowest possible calorie goal ever, which just creates a disaster. So here's how we're going to have a successful cut going forward. In this training, you're going to walk away with understanding exactly how to start so that the first 4 weeks of your cut are successful, leading you to continue with those same actions. And when the first initial weeks do not go well, when most women don't see results in those initial weeks, that's really where inconsistency starts. And that's something you just want to avoid. You want to feel that momentum. You want to be able to continue on. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. So, my best recommendation would be to keep this training in a savable spot, save, bookmark, somewhere you can refer back to it, because I will be going over these steps. But again, this is a 4 week period. So you want to be able to pull from this and find exactly what you need in a much easier way. So before we jump in, I'm giving you the exact same training that I delivered to a fat loss challenge that I ran inside of a Facebook group, which I'll talk about, that led to massive success. This is also the same exact approach I used with my clients like Victoria, Karen, Blake. These were all women drastically under eating, over exercising, could not see that scale budge. And that was very, very frustrating for them. This is some of the real results from that challenge. Average of 10 pounds per participant. Okay. So somebody dropped 15 pounds in a 6 week period. These were women that did not have an exercise goal, they did not have a movement goal, they did not meal plan very well, but they did have the best possible starting point, which looked like a snowball effect. That was not the same as losing a massive amount of weight in these initial weeks and then turning around and gaining the weight back. That their momentum snowballed. And here's exactly why. So when you use an online calculator, for example, to set your starting calories, set your starting macros, number one, you're not getting much guidance in the way of how you're going to adhere to that calorie goal. And that goal could be either much higher than it needs to be or much lower than it needs to be. This is essentially where you should be on paper, which we all know does not take into account our diet history, does not take into account lifestyle factors. And here's what we want to do instead. We want to gather our body's own data. And this will start with a 10 to 14-day nutrition audit where you're simply downloading a tracking app. I recommend MyFitnessPal. That's the app that I'm going to refer to in this training with specific examples. But you're going to do this without aiming for any specific goals at all. The goal is to just simply become highly aware of what you're already putting into your body on a regular basis. If you want to cut this time down, you want to fast track your results, fine. You can even give me 7 to 10 highly accurate tracking days using a food scale and avoiding things like eating in restaurants multiple times a week, things that could just throw your accuracy off in your tracking. And the goal in this period is to just simply be as accurate as possible and to get really curious, not judgmental. That's key. The goal in this is understanding food, is not controlling food. So the goal is not to eat the lowest amount of calories possible or the least amount of food possible. I've had women come to me saying, I'm eating super healthy and I don't understand why the scale won't budge. Well, this is likely why you don't really have numbers to tie to that healthy eating that you're doing. And you may be unknowingly eating 2,500 calories a day. And this is the opportunity you have to simply become aware of that. So the goal is to track with a high level of accuracy, be as honest as possible, not judgmental, and just try not to aim for any specific goals whatsoever. Do your normal in a sense. Eat exactly how you normally eat. Okay. You're also going to want to track a daily weight during this period every day, because a weigh in every 3 days or every 4 days or once a week really tells you nothing. Okay, so we want to be able to tie our average calories of what we consumed in the 2 week period with exactly what our weight did trend wise. Even if you think your weight is not changing, there is likely still a trend. And we're going to talk about what to do with that weight trend. But this is essentially how you're going to look back on the data that you've collected during the audit period. So when you go into MyFitnessPal, the beauty in using this app, even if you have the free version, is that you're going to get your averages easily. And your averages are going to tell you everything you need to know. So you first want to look at your calories from a week view. And you're going to see a net average from your audit. If you were more accurate in week 1 than you were in week 2, maybe focus more on week 1. But you're going to get a net average. And you're also going to find your average amount of protein that you consumed over this period as well. Because too often we're setting calorie goals and protein goals that are highly unrealistic compared to where we're starting and what we're doing. It's never going to be possible to go from 80 grams of protein on average to 150 grams of protein. But it is possible to start to get your protein up and make those shorter, smaller jumps. And that's exactly where you want to start with macro tracking in order to be successful. So calories are king, and you're going to set a reasonable, mild starting point based on what your body's maintenance range looked like. In other words, if your weight stayed exactly the same, you can pretty much rely on the fact that what you ate during your audit is your body's true maintenance range, regardless of what an online calculator says. That is pretty much what it is, because your body is not lying to you. Okay. If your weight slowly trended up, I might recommend a calorie deficit of closer to 20% of a reduction of that average calorie versus a 15% calorie reduction. So if we're just using my numbers, for example, for me, that looked like an audit period of 2016 calories. 15% of that you would multiply by 0.15. That would be a reduction of around 302 calories from my daily intake, giving me a calorie goal of around 1714 to start. Okay. Now, the point in having a starting point here is to not get insanely caught up with specific numbers of grams for carbs, fat, and protein, for example. That is something that you can focus on later. It's not productive for me to focus on getting 100K months in my business before I'm consistent with 10 to 15K months first. So we're not going to focus super heavily on carbs and fat just yet. We're going to focus on a baseline starting point that is realistic, achievable, and doable. And for most people, that is just a 15% calorie reduction from your body's natural normal maintenance. We'll take our protein around 20 grams up from where we started. Why would we create starting goals and not long term goals? Because what gets you here will not get you there, essentially. It's not going to matter if we have the best carb and fat goal if we spent 4 weeks of this cut going up and down in weight. Okay, so the best course of action is to think of these starting goals as simply a test run. We're going to test out this starting goal for 2 to 3 weeks. If you're thinking, yeah, 1700 calories sounds way too high to be a calorie deficit, great. That's the whole point of testing out the goal before considering lowering the goal. And in this test period, you want to be as adherent and consistent and also as accurate as possible. That means not searching for comparable meals in MyFitnessPal. You want to enter things line by line with the appropriate portions. Because if these are the things that we are doing, creating messy tracking, messy data, a new goal is not going to fix that. It's just not going to fix that. When it is time to lower calories, and it most likely will be in an 8 to 12 week cut, you want to wait until the longest possible moment to have to make those changes. You want to layer in movement first. You want to look at your consistency, accuracy, and adherence first. You do not want to haphazardly lower calories unless you're willing to skip eating out, skip having a social life, skip alcohol. So if we can be consistent long term with a goal, let's test that out for 2 to 3 weeks and see. Okay, and this will require you to keep going even if you accidentally overeat, you overconsume. So what? This is where you keep going and recognize where your data can help you, as opposed to thinking your data will shame you or you should just start over when you have perfect circumstances. So the more you recognize in the past where you would have stopped and started, here I need you to keep going. And I would ideally love for you to keep in touch with me every step of the way on your progress. And if you think that starting point is too high to see weight loss in those initial weeks, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Stay in touch. I have not failed this ever in the past, and I'm not failing you. So, this is how you're going to be successful in the first 4 weeks of your cut. That's going to give you a momentum to continue onward. So I hope you loved this training. Again, hit me up. I want you to keep me posted on your progress. My DMs are open and we'll catch you in the next one.